Very much, first of all, for inviting me and all of those in the Canadian Peace Initiative. This is a real honor to be here. It's a pleasure to see Saul here, also Victoria. We were just in Nanaimo at the Council of Canadians conference last week, so it's kind of deep. We followed each other in Ottawa this week. Colleen and I recommitment, and I forget when I was there, probably a year or so ago. We had a similar meeting there, so it's nice to see you folks here. And obviously, of course, my friend who's here. There he is. I had the honor of introducing him when he accepted the Peace Award in the city a number of weeks ago. So, always an honor to be here. This candidate Department of Peace, I think that when we've seen the very perceptive analysis that Professor McKay has given us tonight, the overwhelming answer is yes. We need you folks to lead the charge to take our country back, to unite with other similar organizations and those of us in Parliament who wish to restore our country to where it was years ago. Obviously, we're disappointed that Don Luis Alberto Cordero was not here. Hopefully, he'll be here some other time and we'll have a chance to meet him. Permettez-moi de vous dire que la paix ou le ministère de la paix, c'est-à-dire le concept, appartient à tous. J'encourage ceux et celles qui appartiennent à une formation politique quelconque de travailler dans cette formation. Peace doesn't belong just to the NDP or the Greens or the Liberals. It belongs to everybody. We have a job to do, those of us who belong to political parties, to convince every one of our members, every one of our leaders, that we need to go forward in this direction. That's our task here, I would say. I was not sure exactly what to say when I was going to do my presentation. I thought I'd give a few words on a report prepared by Oxfam called Armed Robbery of the Poorly Regulated Arms Trade is Paralyzing Development. I had some highlights here. Most of you have probably read it. In the interest of time, I'll go on, but I'll just say that it's very troublesome. In this world, military expenditures in fragile and conflict-affected countries grew by 15% between 2009 and 2010, while official development assistance grew only by 9%. And that just corroborates what Professor McKay was telling us. You know, the Canadian Department of Peace could play a key role in these areas. Now, and that's information I would like to share with you very briefly are some of the initiatives for peace undertaken by U.S. Congressman Dennis Kucinich, a strong advocate of peace in the individual and social spheres and in national and foreign policy, because I think his ideas that he's tried to advance in the United States could serve as a blueprint for us here in Canada. He believes that the U.S. government must develop a new broad-based approach to peaceful, non-violent conflict resolution, both domestically and abroad. Actually, he introduced a bill, H.R. 808, in 2009, which would be to create a cabinet-level Department of Peace and Nonviolence. This bill actually included the establishment of a peace state and a cultural diplomacy for peace grants. As Kucinich states, 10 years ago, Congress began a journey that led us to over 4,000, he's talking about Iraq, 4,000 killed Americans, 33,000 injured, as many as 1 million people, Iraqi civilians killed, and saying how his nation wasted trillions of dollars while their economy and infrastructure crumbled. And he ends his statement by saying, imagine what could have been done if Congress had maintained the courage to say no to the Bush-Cheney Rumsfeld war machine. Imagine and demand never again. So, what I find interesting is that he sees his Department of Peace as getting to the root of the conflict before they occur. He talks about wars that we created in Afghanistan, Libya, and Iraq, and not accepting after the consequences of what we've done. It may seem that there's other interesting quotations, but I'll have to move on a bit here. It may seem that I've spent a little too much time talking about him and his initiatives, but I thought it was important because I think this puts my bill 373 in perspective. There's over 30 countries, folks, in the world that have campaigned to create the Department of Peace. In 3 countries, Nepal, the Solomon Islands, and Costa Rica, this is a reality. So I'll just talk a bit about Nepal in case you haven't heard about it. It's an interesting situation. Coalition of 13 organizations and Nepal Peace Initiative lobbied the Nepal government as well as Maoist insurgents in 2005 to start a dialogue for resolution of the conflict in Nepal for the creation of a state-level Department of Peace. The coalition achieved its objective of dialogue between the Maoists and 7 key political parties. It was stressed that a Department of Peace was a necessary step when Nepal was in its transition phase to restore peace, democracy, and the rule of law. So the Ministry of Peace and Reconstruction was created on March 31st of 2007. So where does that leave us here in Canada? I think if we take Congressman Hussein's vision, combine it with an accomplished Costa Rica and Nepal, I believe we have a blueprint for further discussion. Peace is a concept, is not a top priority of any of the departments, for example, deal with peace today, such as foreign affairs, CDPI, justice, and immigration. My bill would consolidate this. Here's an example of a recent history where Canadian Department of Peace could have played an active role. According to Graham McQueen of the Master Peace Studies Center, their organization sought funding to work in Afghanistan through the 1990s when the Soviets had retreated and people needed and wanted help from the West to rebuild. He was told that Afghanistan was not a priority for Canada. Well, we know what kind of a priority it became and the toll it took on our country. So I got a number of highlights in my bill. I think I'll just mention a very few instead of going through it. The idea is to help advance the cause of peace in Canada and throughout the world, and I would submit to counteract that evil, that presence permeating our society that Professor Mackay talked about, a counteract, a counterbalance to help take our country back. So it would be a minister. It would be a minister with a department, deputy minister, assistant deputy ministers, and the mission would be peace building. There would be areas for human security through nonviolent conflict resolution, education, establishing a National Peace Academy, a degree in peace education, domestic, you would be responsible for domestic peace, funding community share-based violence prevention, internationally, training personnel working in post-conflict reconstruction, and also the minister would advise the defense and foreign affairs ministers in all matters related to national security, training of civilian peacekeepers, civilian peace cadet program in Canada and overseas, and an annual report to the Prime Minister on Canadian arms sales to other nations. And the bill envisions a consultation process where before the conflict, the ministers of national defense and foreign affairs would have to consult with the Minister of Peace to try to resolve the conflict in a non-violent way. And it goes on to talk about various deputy minister and various assistant deputy ministers for domestic peace activities, international arms control and disarmament, where we talk about international negotiations. And the interesting thing that the bill outlined is that a commissioner of peace appointed by the minister would monitor the work of the Department of Peace. And the commissioner would work with an advisory council made up of citizens of the community and folks like yourselves who would actually then be able to influence policy of the government. In conclusion, we're running through this pretty quickly, but I'll say I want to emphasize that C373, I think Teresa or somebody said you want some good bedtime reading, it's right there on the table in both English language. I want to emphasize that this is not some kind of a utopian dream. We've seen, for example, those behind a similar initiative in Nepal and other countries were instrumental in bringing peace and stability to their country. Folks, as a former military officer, and I must add, I guess I come from a military family. My father was a military chaplain in the Russian Orthodox Church, was executed when the Bolsheviks took power. My grandfather, I should say, my father fought in the First World War, in the Russian Civil War. he knew the horrors of war, he never talked about it. Never talked about it. So I think there's no conflict between me going on a Mother's Day Peace March in my community of Osoyoos and then going to Remembrance Day ceremonies, because I think everybody knows, whether you're a veteran who's gone through war or someone who's been advocating for peace, that war is hell, and we need to do all we can through all our means to recognize that and put a stop to it. So, folks, although Bill 373 is not the ultimate answer to end conflict in the world, it can play a major role. And I repeat, it's not some kind of a utopian dream. It has worked in other countries. Once we start looking at the world through what I call a lens of peace, we may even surprise ourselves. And as Dennis Kucinich states, and I quote, "Nations and leaders may take a detour into war, but we have a duty to challenge them. We must challenge violence on a national scale. But what gives us our authenticity as individuals is that we have peace in our own lives." Merci.